Welcome back. President Trump set to sign an executive order which would penalize big banks and possibly crypto companies for discriminating over customer politics. He'll reportedly instruct regulators to review banks for, quote, politicized or unlawful debanking practices. The president calling out JP Chase and Bank of America, saying both of those banks refused his money, refused to accept more than $1 billion of his deposits. Both banks have denied the claims. In fact, JP told Fox Business, quote, "We do not close accounts for political reasons, and we agree with President Trump that regulatory change is desperately needed. We commend the White House for addressing this issue and look forward to working with them to get this right." Bank of America told us, "We welcome the Trump administration's efforts to provide regulatory clarity to banks. We've provided detailed proposals and will continue to work with the administration and Congress to improve the regulatory framework." And Capital One spokesperson told us Capital One has not and does not close customer accounts for political reasons. We have not yet heard back from TD Bank. This is exactly the opposite of what Eric Trump and Melania Trump told me directly, that they, in fact, were debanked. Joining me now is Kentucky Congressman Andy Barr, member of the House Financial Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. I know you plan to lead a bill codifying this order. Tell us what you'd like to see happen.
I applaud President Trump for fighting back against the pernicious practice of debanking. This is something that I've been fighting in the Congress for over a decade. When I first came to Congress, President Obama's federal banking agencies were engaged in what was known then as Operation Choke Point. I had a constituent, a lawfully operating coal business, a coal mining business. This was a multi-generational business with a fortress balance sheet, very creditworthy, and nevertheless, they were contacted by their bank, and they were told that they were going to have to discontinue their relationship because they were in a politically unpopular business, politically unpopular with then President Obama. This accelerated, this so-called Operation Choke Point accelerated during the Biden administration. And we saw lawfully operating businesses beyond fossil energy. We saw the crypto industry, digital assets, pawnbrokers, small dollar consumer credit companies, even Christian organizations debanked because they were perceived as politically unfashionable conservative organizations. So I applaud President Trump for his executive order to stop this discrimination. And Senator Tim Scott, the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, and I have introduced a bill to codify the president's efforts here. We're working with the president to fix this problem. Our bill, the FIRM Act, would prohibit the federal bank regulators from using so-called reputational risk as a justification to discontinue banking services or deny financial services to law-abiding Americans.
Yeah, I mean, look, we still have these banks saying we didn't do this. You know, we are denying any of this. How are we going to get to a place where, depending on who's in the White House, you know, the business community will roll over for whoever is in the Oval Office? I mean, look what happened with Joe Biden, you know, bullying, social media, canceling so many people as they tried to take down President Trump. They did the same thing with the banks, we understand, pressuring the major banks not to bank conservatives. Is there anything you can do as an elected official to ensure that we are not going to allow this?
Yes, there is, and our bill would end debanking. It would codify the president's executive order. It would put into federal law a specific prohibition on this political targeting, this discrimination against law-abiding, creditworthy Americans. You know, this happened to President Trump himself. And President Trump's family. But I'll tell you, President Trump's leadership on this issue is not just because it happened to him. He's trying to prevent this from happening to law-abiding Americans. And I applaud him for that. And Senator Scott and I are working on this to make sure that all Americans have access to the banking system. Banks should not be red or blue, Democrat or Republican, but we've seen big banks basically do the bidding of the Democratic National Committee over and over again. And look at crypto, the crypto industry under the Biden administration. The Biden administration targeted digital assets and law-abiding crypto businesses. And so many of these innovative entrepreneurs were denied basic banking services, and it pushed a lot of this innovation offshore. So I am so proud to be working shoulder to shoulder with President Trump to fix this problem and end the discrimination that we see by federal banking regulators and prevent banks from doing this to law-abiding Americans.
Meanwhile, White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff meeting with Vladimir Putin yesterday in Moscow ahead of President Trump's deadline for Russia to make peace with Ukraine. The president signaling great progress in the talks, writing on Truth Social, great progress was made. Afterwards, I updated some of our European allies. Everyone agrees this war must come to a close, and we will work toward that in the days and weeks to come. The president is hoping to meet with Vladimir Putin in person as soon as next week. Congressman, what are you expecting here from this meeting?
Well, I'm very hopeful, and I'm so grateful that we have a commander-in-chief now who actually is working to achieve a lasting and durable peace. You know, the further invasion of Ukraine by Russia would have never happened under President Trump. And it's very noteworthy to see President Trump restore peace through strength with the obliteration of Iran's nuclear program by this commander-in-chief. And look at what President Trump has done on Russia. He has restored sanctions on India for financing this war, the purchase of oil sales. And look at what President Trump did at the beginning of his second administration. He reversed the weak policy of the Biden administration that provided a huge loophole on Russian banks. The Biden administration said that it sanctioned Russian banks. But this is something that I highlighted throughout the Biden term, was that he provided a general license to the Russian banks to process energy exports. This president, finally, President Trump, is putting maximum pressure on Vladimir Putin. He closed that loophole. And so these tough sanctions are bringing Russia to the table. And I am very hopeful that this pressure will ultimately lead to a durable peace and an end to this war.
Well, I mean, having President Trump, who is a businessman in the Oval Office, has really been an incredible change. And he's looking at things from a growth perspective, an investment perspective. I mean, look at all the money that has come into America. Apple announced that it's investing another $100 billion in U.S. manufacturing over the coming 4 years, bringing more of its supply chain home. Congressman, Apple made a $2.5 billion commitment to produce all of its iPhone and Apple Watch cover glass in Corning's Harrodsburg, Kentucky factory. That's your district. What kind of an impact is this going to have?
This is absolutely huge, Maria. President Trump and I are working together to bring American manufacturing back to the United States. And in this case, with Apple's announcement yesterday, $2.5 billion investment in the Corning plant in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, where we make the so-called Gorilla Glass, the hard glass that goes into iPhones. We're bringing all of those jobs back from China and other Asian countries, and all of those jobs are coming to my district, Harrodsburg, Kentucky. And it's for two major reasons. President Trump's tariff policies and President Trump's one big beautiful bill that I had a chance to vote for. And there's a Made in America manufacturing provision that works in tandem with the president's successful tariff policies that says that if Apple expands that manufacturing plant, if Corning expands that manufacturing plant in conjunction with Apple and brings those jobs to Kentucky, as they say they will do, they get a big tax cut. So this is jet fuel for our economy, and it's jet fuel for the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky right in my district.
Yeah, I mean, no question. And of course, you know, there's a reason you see so many CEOs right now trying to get in front of President Trump because they want a voice at the table. What do you make of what's going on in the semiconductor sector? I mean, on the one hand, President Trump is trying to encourage all of these companies to fire up manufacturing in the U.S., but look at Intel and how far it has fallen. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton is pressing the board of Intel right now about its new CEO and his potential ties to communist China. You've done so much work on communist China. I want to get your take on this. The CEO's name is Lip-Bu Tan. He was appointed CEO in March after Pat Gelsinger stepped down. He was formerly the head of Cadence Design Systems, a software company enabling chip design, but it was found guilty of violating export controls, selling the technology at Cadence Design to a Chinese military university. Intel responded, telling us this: Intel and Mr. Tan are deeply committed to the national security of the United States and the integrity of our role in the U.S. defense ecosystem. We appreciate Senator Cotton's focus on these shared priorities. We look forward to addressing the matters with the senator. But Congressman Cotton writes this: I write to express concern about the security and integrity of Intel's operation and its potential impact on U.S. national security. In March of 25, Intel appointed Mr. Tan as its new CEO, and he controls dozens of Chinese companies and has a stake in hundreds of Chinese advanced manufacturing and chip firms. At least 8 of these companies reportedly have ties to the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Mr. Chan, most recently the CEO of Cadence Design, pled guilty to illegally selling products to a Chinese military university and transferring the technology to an associated Chinese semiconductor company without obtaining licenses. Cotton wants answers. He wants to know if the board was aware of the subpoenas that Cadence was served before hiring Mr. Chan as CEO, and what measures were taken to address these concerns. Your reaction?
Well, Maria, Senator Tom Cotton is a good friend, and he's a patriot. And once again, he's showing that he is leading the charge to defend our country against the Chinese Communist Party, raising legitimate concerns about the new leadership at Intel. I trust this administration to make sure that our critical technology, like our semiconductor technology, our advanced microelectronic technology, doesn't fall into Chinese hands. But Senator Cotton is raising alarm bells, legitimate concerns, and I want answers as well. I want to hear from Intel about what they're going to do to protect American intellectual property. We are in a race with the Chinese Communist Party on advanced semiconductors, the kind of semiconductors that power artificial intelligence. Thank you to Senator Cotton and the administration for raising this issue.
Yeah, and we're using these advanced semiconductor chips in our military. Congressman, it's great to talk with you. We'll be following your work on that, certainly. Thank you, sir. Andy Barr joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon. We'll be right back. Stay with us.